Would you like to learn how to make these beautiful sugar cookies, perfect for any occasion? Your family will love them, and they're crisp and delicious. Stay tuned to the next episode of Hilltop Stovetop. Hello and welcome back to Hilltop Stovetop, the show where we're teaching you how to make great meals in an ordinary kitchen. Today we're continuing our series of videos where we're recreating recipes from the Toulon United Church Circle Coronation Cookbook in honor of the Platinum Jubilee for Queen Elizabeth. And today I have a special guest chef, Anne Thorogood. And Anne is really familiar with these recipes, particularly the one we're doing today, because this was Anne's grandmother's recipe.
Yes.
And in the recipe book, it says it's Mrs. E.A. Peterson. And I don't even know what her first name was.
Greta.
Greta. So this is Greta Peterson's recipe. And in those days, the women would most of the time use their husband's name, so that's where it's Mrs. E.A. Peterson. So while we're mixing these up, Anne has wonderful stories about these cookies, but we're going to start off with some mixing. These are Aunt Mary's cookies, but you don't know who Aunt Mary is.
We have no collection of an Aunt Mary in our family, but that's the name above the cookies.
Okay, that's good. And in my family, my grandma used to make, I think, the same cookies, and they were just the sugar cookies. There was no Aunt Mary in ours, but same process. And these are a great cookie for, today we're making them as Valentine's Day cookies. But we're going to start off, now I'm just making half of the recipe. In this recipe, it's got 5 cups of flour, which is going to make a lot of cookies. Because it's just me, I'm just cutting this in half. So I'm starting off with a cup of butter. And it does say to cream the butter, right?
Cream the butter,
Yep.
Yes.
Now, in our other videos, we've been talking about how in 1953, there was a lot of people in Toulon that still didn't have electricity. So even though most of the mixing I'm going to be doing with an electric mixer, I am going to show you what we did in our house. And this was, I remember this at Grandma's house. It was a job that she would give us as little kids to cream the butter. And this is what you do if you don't have an electric mixer. You take your wooden spoon and you kind of break it up into bits. And then you take the back of the wooden spoon and run it back and forth like this across the edge of the bowl. So hopefully my overhead shot is getting that. And so the more you do that, the softer it gets.
And I think creaming the butter is the answer to a good sugar cookie, actually to any cookie. If you don't cream your butter or margarine, nothing else matters. You have to cream it and really cream it and make it fluffy.
Yes.
And then you gradually add the sugar. But it's a gradual process, and it's the basis for any good cookie, and especially the sugar cookie.
Exactly. Good point. Now, I don't have quite the muscles that I used to when I was 8 or whatever it was, so I am going to switch back to the electric mixer. But even just that little bit that I was doing, it's so much softer and fluffier, but we're going to do a little bit more with the electric mixer. Okay.
At this stage, I would scrape the dough down off the side of the bowl, so you have it all is mixed in thoroughly.
There we go. And now we got some eggs to put in here.
Then you have 2 eggs to put in, and you hope you don't get the shell.
Yep, leave the
And
shell out.
If you get the shell, well, I guess the best thing is to try and get it out now before you have it in the dough and then can't find it. Somebody gets a surprise.
And we've both done that at some point, haven't we, Ann?
Yes. Sometimes the shell goes in. You don't want it there.
Yep. All right. So. Now, is that fluffy enough, do you think?
Yes, I think so.
Okay.
Actually, it has to be fluffy before you add the eggs, because after the eggs, it really doesn't get fluffy.
It doesn't get much
now,
fluffier.
I've always, when I make these, and it's frequently, I add the soda, the 2 teaspoons of baking soda, and then the 4 teaspoons of cream of tartar to the flour,
So we've got
and sift them together. And I think it's the cream of tartar that makes these cookies special. And so.
And if we don't do this sifting it together, you're likely to end up with some soda or some cream of tartar kind of in a clump in the middle of it, and so things won't rise evenly.
I'm just taking the little pebbles and breaking them up so they'll go through the sifter.
Yeah.
So that they all get into the
There we go.
Into the cookies.
Yeah.
That we so like.
That's right. And now we're going to add a little bit of salt. And those of you who watch my videos will notice that I usually have the salt out here, and I can't count the number of times I've forgotten to add it in. And that little bit of salt does make a difference. And a little bit of flavoring, it says. So we're using.
And flavoring, we use vanilla.
Yeah.
I use vanilla. I don't know if I've ever used another kind of flavoring.
Yeah,
in,
I would guess
in it.
like almond flavor wouldn't be bad in this, I don't think. All right, so we're going to add this in gradually as well.
Gradually, yes.
Okay, I'll mix and you add.
It says folding, but in this day and age, it's pretty hard to figure out how to fold.
Yeah.
I think you're finished.
Okay.
You can't get it over the edge and it won't come out. Well, if you put your beater next to the edge and turn it on low, will the dough come out?
It will if I give it a little, get the bigger chunks out.
And then we'll have to clean up the kitchen and everywhere else where it flies.
Yes.
I usually do my mixing in the sink.
Oh, that's a good idea.
And so it's a little easier to clean up, because I guess.
Okay. Anyway, we were just talking about how we've all made mistakes as cooks, but that's how we learn. And even though I've been making a lot of cookies, Anne just taught me something there about actually holding it against the side of the bowl when you're doing that. I mean, and it was true. It did come apart a little bit easier. And this is a nice soft dough.
It's too soft to roll until you refrigerate it. So the next step is this goes into the refrigerator for a few hours, maybe overnight, depending on how much time you have.
Yeah.
And then you can.
Alrighty, so we've got this all nicely mixed up, and our batter's cleared off as best we can. And Anna's going to put that all together in a nice ball. Then we're going to wrap it up in plastic, either putting it into a tub or putting it in wrapped in a saran wrap or plastic wrap, whatever you want. And we're going to pop it in the fridge and make sure it's well chilled, because right now, as Anne says, it's way too soft to have this any hope of being able to roll this out. And we'll be back in an hour or so with ready to go with the actual producing of the cookies. You do
your dough is soft, so you can add a considerable amount of flour on your board, and and roll it up. I probably need a knife, or maybe I can do it with this.
Well, we've got knives. We've got.
Well, just a minute. I'm getting out the dough
Oh, okay.
out of this container, and I usually use a knife, but you know what? A wooden spoon like this works well too. And so you just take a small part. It depends on how much you want to work and how many times you want to roll. Partly
How big your counter is too.
and yes, how big your counter is, and you take and make a ball out of it, rolling it in the flour that you have on the counter, and it takes a little bit of kneading to get it so that you want to, so it'll cut or it'll roll first. And you don't want to add a lot of flour because then your cookies will not be tender. But it's kind of like rolling out a pie shell. You get it into a circle, although you don't have to be fussy about the circle because and then I'm going to roll it over and get the flour on one side, knead it into the dough. And in the meantime, have you got the oven on?
Yes, I do. It's on at 350 degrees.
Good.
There we go.
Oh, this is heavy. I don't know if I've ever used a
marble rolling
a
pin?
marble. No.
It's a wondrous thing, let me tell you.
Yes, it doesn't take the pressure that the regular ones do.
Yes.
And you want it fairly thin. 1/4 inch is too thick. I would think closer to 1/8 of an inch, and even. And with this, I can see the advantage of the heavy rolling pin because, boy, it would all knock out a man too.
Yeah. Oh,
and that maybe
my husband was very well behaved.
he had to be with that. And then you take and you cut out as many, and you put them on the parchment paper on
a cookie sheet.
cookie sheet. Yes, sorry.
And
Lost it. And you just keep on cutting. Hopefully you're not cutting over, which like I am, but that's another mistake.
That's okay.
You know, these are going to be fancy hearts. They're not just going to be hearts, they're going to have dings in them.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll have to put something like,
Well, as long as they're not broken hearts.
they're not broken hearts.
Here we
yes.
go. We've got. I
Have you
forgot
got
to
a
bring
li-
this out.
Oh, okay, fine.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
And
you got
then,
that out?
yes, please, thank
Okay.
you. Then every cookie sheet is different, and I'm looking for the corners on this one.
Yeah. Well, it's just where the paper is.
Yes, it's
Yeah,
where
we're
the
good.
paper. Oh, okay.
Yeah. Now these cookies, they don't spread very much when you're cooking them.
No,
Right?
no.
Some cookies, like our drop cookies, you have to make sure that you leave extra space around because they are going to get bigger. In these cases, this is the size that we've got. And
I probably should have had a little bit more flour on the bottom because they're sticking to the counter.
okay.
But like I said, we don't want to add a lot of flour because then, whoop, there's one with a curve on it. Shall we put it on there?
Okay.
We can put an arrow on that
Sure.
one without any problem.
Well, that's the one that cooks get to eat. Isn't that how it works?
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Good, because lunch is going to be good today.
Oh, it is.
It is going to be good. And we're going to have sugar cookies for dessert.
Absolutely, we are.
If you want to sprinkle the sugar,
Okay.
put a sugar in a sprinkle jar, and then because without sugar on the top of these, they don't work. They don't turn out very well. And now my slave is there cutting. You have
Okay,
to- you
that's
have to
good.
add plenty of sugar.
Am I doing
Yeah,
enough
I think,
there?
yes, this one maybe not. Boy, am I fussy.
Well, no, you're the expert in this. This
No,
is good.
I don't know. Expert, because I've made them many, many, many times, and
Yeah, I'm going to do a few different ones because this is Valentine's Day. We've got some of this red colored sugar, so we're going to try some of that in there. And this is an advantage to having our parchment paper because there is going to be sugar that ends up on the cookie sheet. And if you didn't have the parchment paper, it would be just awful trying to clean that. Now these other ones and these little pink balls, do you need extra sugar in addition to the pink balls?
oh yes, you put the white sugar on first.
Okay.
Because
So I
if
should
you
have done
don't put the white sugar on first, then the cookies do not turn out without sugar sprinkled on the top of them. It's interesting how one of my friends made the sugar cookies. I made them for her daughter's wedding way back in the 1970s. And she said, well, I'm going to make some myself. And she said, they didn't turn out at all. She had not put sugar on the top of them.
Yeah.
And it was sort of a necessity to have that sugar on the top of them.
Oh, I put the sugar before I got the dough in. I'm getting carried away here.
You'll put the sugar on the bottom of the cookie too.
Yeah.
I don't think I've tried that, but anything for a first time.
Anything for a first time.
We can try it.
Okay, so these ones. Oh, these get carried away in there.
Those are from my daughter. When she heard I was going to do this, she sent her a supply of colored sugars and whatever, because she had bought a bunch of them before Christmas. Last year we couldn't get them because of the pandemic, and this year it was a case of she bought them, I think, in October, so that she had them. And so these are more or less leftover from. There's another cookie that'll be the cook's.
Okay.
Labor-intensive cookies, but when I take them, I give them as gifts. I'll wrap them up. Well, I won't wrap them because I don't like wrapping, but I'll put them in a snack bag, a couple of them, and leave them for my neighbors and my friends. And instead of a Valentine cookie, instead of a Valentine card, because I don't like shopping either. And so it just means that it's homemade, and that's a thrill for a lot of people, and it's gratifying to me to be able to do it.
And I'm going to give some of these to my neighbors because we have our building coffee hour coming up next week, and because these freeze very well, we can make it ahead of time, and that'll be fine.
Thought that the raw dough was better than the cooked one.
There is something about it. I mean, I do the same when I make bread. I always have to have a taste of it. And the other thing about having a taste like that, and you'll see a lot of warning labels on things nowadays to not eat the raw dough. I can't tell you the number of times when I've had a bite of the raw dough and I forgot to put in whatever it might be. So it's okay to do that.
Correct your mistakes.
I can correct mistakes, exactly.
I think we're finished rolling for now. Ellen will be doing the rest of the dough, or I'll be doing the rest of the dough at a later time,
Yeah.
and not take up your time watching us play around with
Okay.
Valentine sugar cookies.
So we've got a few things like that. We're going to pop them in the oven. Now, Anne has different versions of this. My recipe from 1953 says at a 350 degree oven for 15 to 20 minutes. Yours says 10 to 12?
8 to 10
8 to 10.
is what my mother's recipe was from her mother.
Yeah.
So
So what we're going to do is we're going to pop these in the oven, but I'm going to set the timer for 8 minutes, and we can always check it later. But if I set it for 20 minutes and they're done at 8, we're going to have toast here instead. So we'll see.
we have the
about-
fire station coming.
Well, exactly. There's good smoke detectors in this building.
Yeah, too good, likely.
So we're going to start with that. And while those are cooking, Anne's got a few stories about her reminiscences around these cookies.
Well, I've mentioned Valentine's Day and giving them away. This year at Christmas time, before Christmas, we have to make a date now because the kids are in their late 20s, early 30s, and you have to make sure
The
that they're available.
The grandkids are.
Grandkids. And so we have a family get together, and Sarah rolled them all. Megan was in charge of the oven, Brenda was in charge of decorating. Brian and Megan's fiance wanted to decorate, but he was on call at work, so he did it between calls, and I just interfered with the whole mess. And in 2 hours we had the whole recipe, the 2 cups of margarine, 2 cups of sugar, and 5 cups of flour done and decorated. And then I had homemade soup for them for lunch.
Yeah.
But in the afternoon, I had called a neighbor down who is not well at all. Where I live in a life lease complex, 71 suites in Winnipeg. And I called her down and said, look, take a couple or 3 dozen of these. Don't please take all one decoration, because there's trees and angels and all the kinds of, and we've culled it down so that, the cutting down so that it is, they're not as fragile. You know, some of them have big long things on them and you can't
Yeah,
transport.
and that makes them, they don't cook evenly either when they're not, when they're cut odd shapes.
And the pandemic did not stop us for Christmas. Brenda, my daughter, made the dough and gave us each a ball of dough. And then we made them in our own kitchen by ourselves over FaceTime. And it wasn't as good as being together, but it was certainly better than not doing it at all.
Right, exactly. And that's the beauty nowadays. We've got the technology that we can do all kinds of stuff and share these recipes.
Several years ago, I invited my Vietnamese boat lady friend and her 2 daughters in. So there was the ones we had last year, making cookies plus 4 more, and my husband, who was in charge of the oven. And they were the Vietnamese people were Hindu people, but that didn't stop them from coming and helping make Christmas cookies.
Absolutely, yeah.
And so I had lots of experience with sugar cookies, happy experiences.
Yeah, exactly. And it doesn't matter what time of year, like right now we're making Valentine's cookies, you mentioned the Christmas cookies, but even throughout the rest of the year, just having flower shapes or circle shapes or whatever kind of shapes works.
I had made sugar cookies round in shape. I'm thinking probably not bigger than this, probably smaller than that. I made many of them, and I guess it's an offbeat from the imperial cookie where you put 2 of them together with raspberry jam and then you can ice them. Personally, I've never iced sugar cookies because that would make them not crisp. They would take the moisture from the icing. And part of the joy of the sugar cookie, I believe, is the crispness of
Right,
it.
yeah, yeah. And whether it be imperial cookies or jams, which are kind of the same, except you have a cutout in the middle so you can see the jam.
I think they're thicker
They're
too.
a little thicker, yeah. And again, you're getting the moisture out of the jam, softening the cookies. So you don't want it, they wouldn't keep as well as these ones. These ones you can put them in the freezer and they're good, assuming they last that long.
I think the imperial cookies will be all the rage because of the Queen's birthday coming up, and they're the height of the cookie, I think, in Winnipeg.
Yes,
At least that's what I gathered.
yes, yeah. So that's 2 cookies, raspberry jam in the middle, a confectioner's glaze on the top with a little cherry on the top, if I recall.
I'm looking to see what else I have. I remember having lived in Kindersley, Saskatchewan, and having always had sugar cookies in my freezer. And when our neighbors got to see us when we lived in Marathon, Ontario, and I brought out sugar cookies for lunch, she said, "Oh, I wanted that recipe. I've been thinking about that," and that's 10 years later. So sugar cookies stay in people's minds. They love them.
Yeah,
Wedding gifts. Oh yes, my niece, also Ellen's niece, we're related via a long way.
Yeah.
But my niece Gwen, I mentioned what I was doing, and she said, "Oh, Auntie Anne," she said, "you gave me an ice cream bucket full of sugar cookies for my wedding." And she said it was in the traditional ice cream bucket. Yes, I said, because I don't like wrapping. and it's not practical, and the ice cream bucket would come in handy after you've finished eating all the cookies.
That's right, yeah. Yeah.
So,
The hard part is eating all the ice cream to start with, so you've got the bucket.
well, when I had 3 boys, one Christmas, they each got a bucket for ice cream in their stocking.
Oh,
And so there was always plenty of buckets around.
yeah.
So steps up over
Okay,
all
you had
that.
another story on the back, did you get to that one?
Yeah, no,
Oh,
that
yeah,
was
we
the
already
Christmas
talked about,
one.
we talked about
Yes.
this last Christmas, exactly.
But-
And we've got a minute left, I'm just gonna have a quick thing. Nope, yeah, I think they're gonna need more than 8 minutes, aren't they?
Probably another
Yeah.
2 minutes.
Yeah.
The recipe says 8 to 10, but your recipe says 15. We
Right.
better not do that or we'll
No.
have crisp.
We won't do that. But while that's finishing up, we'll just clear off the counter so we've got space when these come out of the oven. And then, okay, so we were actually got this at 10 minutes.
Some people like their cookies done longer than others. I'm inclined to have them too brown. And,
So we've got these ones along the edge that were kind of curled up a little. Oh, careful not. That are very brown. And then we've got these ones at the other side that are not quite as brown. But in all cases, we've got the sugar on the top.
and that's what the important thing is, put sugar on the top when you're baking. Before you bake them, you put the sugar on the top, or somehow they just aren't like sugar cookies.
No. Yeah, those ones on the edge we have.
Well, well, there's a couple here that are for the cookies.
That's right.
And we have to have some of that too.
We do. Sometimes I pick up the parchment paper and just slide them all off, but I was trying to make this look good for the camera.
It's amazing here when I'm looking at these cookies, the ones that have no decoration on, just the white sugar, seem to be more cooked than the ones that have decorated sugar on them,
Yeah.
which I didn't realize that happened before.
Yeah, I guess you always do like one batch at a time, all the same.
Yes,
Mhm.
and have somebody watching the oven.
Yes.
Because because they all need different times. I didn't realize that, so I learned today too.
All right, so there you go. So, thank you for joining us today on Hilltop Stovetop, where my guest Ann Thorogood and I have made sugar cookies, also known as Aunt Mary's cookies, from the Toulon United Church Circle Coronation Cookbook from 1953. I hope you remember to like and subscribe on YouTube, and we will see you at the next episode. Bye-bye for now.
Thank you.